and I will just check to make sure this thing works.
Respected Shri Nipun Mehta, he'd like saying hi Nipun. Yatin Desai, President, Chamber of Tax Consultant, Senior Past President of Bombay Chartered Account Society, Pradeep Bhai Shah, elders and friends. On behalf of Bombay Chartered Account Society and the Chamber of Tax Consultant, I take great pleasure in welcoming each one of you to this meeting organized under the auspices of Amita Memorial Trust. We are indeed privileged to have somebody like Shri Nipun Mehta coming today and speaking to us on a subject like spirit of service, connecting to the inner net. Actually, I did a double read. I thought it's internet, but then I understood the play of words, the inner net. And for that, we owe our gratitude to Pradeep Bhai and his entire family for arranging this lecture and many in the past, year after year, in the fond memory of Amita Ben. And with these, I request Pradeep Bhai to take charge of the proceeding, introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Friends, Naushad has really put before me a very difficult task. He wants me to describe a gentleman who is half my age but does more than double the amount of work which I do. He is absolutely what shall I say, an institution in himself, by himself. And there are certain things which he does, which people have been asking him, what does he do, what does he do? And I find it so difficult to explain that. So I said, if I try and tell you now what he does, it is like revealing to you in a murder story what comes in the last chapter. So let that be his privilege. What he is doing several things. His main principle is what is called as giftivism, which is an idea which I have half understood, so I will not speak about it. He also does a lot of work in terms of he's the founder of service-based organization, and he does through that a lot of work for charity, millions of dollars of work. And his principle is doesn't take anything for it. I mean, something which one has to understand. We have to first press the delete button, wipe out everything in our mind, and then let him speak and make us understand what is the brilliant theory. And like all the other previous speakers, Haribhai Kothari and Shivani Ben, he is a person who puts in practice what he speaks. It is not something that you speak something which is very impractical and then just let the audience say, ah, very good person, very good person. No, I think every inch is what he's speaking. Totally, what shall I say? The alignment between thinking, speaking and action is there. He has the concept of what is known as karma kitchen. So in that kitchen, when you go, you have your food, the bill served is zero. You don't have to pay. People ahead of you who came before have paid for you. Whatever you want, you live for people coming behind you. Later on who come. And he said it runs very well. There are about 5 centers, about 5 such things which they are running, and it does not make a loss. There are, he's also he's a qualified in computer science and philosophy. I don't understand how subjects are selected. This is what my grandson tells me, that I am doing this and philosophy, and I understand how the 2 subjects go together, God only knows. Friends, I can only say that all of us have seen that film Sound of Music, and in that those nuns talk about Maria and say, how can you say what Maria is? So I say the same thing, how can you say what Nipun Bhai is? Let him speak and explain to us what he is. May I now request Yatin Bhai to present a memento on behalf of all of us to Yatin Bhai.
Good? Thank you. Well, I'm so honored. It feels like a privilege. I'm standing 25. It feels like I'm walking into heaven. Although I don't know so many of you, it feels like it's home. So thank you for holding that vibration of love. I want to talk about not so much service based, which is the work we do, but more about the lessons we have learned, and particularly 3 insights. So I'll start with this photo, which is just a small little thing, but it really touched me. It says, everyone and everything around you is your teacher. So I'm going back to the US I think in 3 days now. So I had my last meeting with my haircut, with my barber. So I go to this guy. I live on the outskirts of Ahmedabad. Usually that's my base. So there is this guy. He gives me a 20 rupee haircut, and he's just a simple guy, no electricity, hole in the wall kind of a person. But we started doing satsang every so often. So this time I knew, because we had connected. Every time he would go, first time he saw me, he's like, "Sahib, tumhara kya baal mein haircut?" That's exactly how I responded. I said, just because I'm bald, you know. So then bit by bit we start talking, and then he said, no, I know the perfect hairstyle for you. I said, yeah, you know, that's not really going to look nice. He said, no, you don't know, I know. So he tries to give me this hairstyle, and I have to tell him, no, I think you're upset. Then he will listen to me. So he gives me this thing, we start bonding, and we have a really nice connection. So this last week was our last time that I'm meeting him on this trip. So I took a bunch of chocolates, and I said, this is for your kids. He takes it and walks it. He's like very happy. I gave him my 20 for my haircut. And then I took out 100 and I said, this is a gift from me to you. But this is not for you. This is for you to pay forward. And most people, like if you go to a random person, if someone gives you 100, you have 20 different questions. This guy, who probably has very little education, he immediately says, oh, great, I know exactly what I'm going to do. No questions, no other drama, nothing. He says, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I was like very surprised by his response. I said, what are you going to do? I'm going to feed the cows. And I was like, wow, what spontaneous generosity of this guy. And then he tells me one other thing which blows me away. He says, I said, so Mahesh, make sure you do it. Huh? He's like, yeah, I got it. Not only that, because when you are so far away and I'm here, we'll be connected in Pune. This guy, who is a barber, who doesn't have any degrees, he doesn't have any fancy things to boast about, he doesn't even know that you can, instead of 20 rupees, we could probably be charging a lot more than that, because the wages have gone up since the time we probably started. But anyway, not interested in any of that. But what he knows is love. What he knows is compassion. What he knows is the deepest way to connect between 2 points is the path of love. So in that sense, what happens if everyone and everything around us is our teacher? Last week, this is a photo from maybe a week and a half ago. All these people met together for a retreat in Ahmedabad. It was very nice. Some really beautiful, wonderful people, royalty from Japan and heads of different organizations. And the idea was, let's all come together in the spirit of compassion. So this one guy came. He's one of the founding deans at Indian School of Business. And he's also an MIT Sloan Business School. He's written a book, Smart to Wise. He's done a lot of great things. So right as he enters the premises, someone comes and tells him, oh, Prasad, welcome home. So he is a very analytical guy. So he says, oh, this is a retreat center. How is this my home? This is our home. Okay, these people keep saying home. But then he walks in, he's to his place of residence, where he's assigned a room. He goes and he's used to the US. In the US, everywhere you go outside to sleep, you have a towel. This is more a little bit like a dharamshala, so there was no towel. So he's like looking and then he's telling someone, oh yeah, I don't have a towel. Someone finds out, third person finds out, fourth person, and the fifth person had an extra towel and they leave it on his bed. Then he walks into the different rooms and we have a habit of taking out our shoes. Now he had his shoes, instead of chappals he had shoes, so everywhere he used to put it on, put it off, so it was very cumbersome. So someone saw that. They gave him chappals in his room. Then he says, you know, he's going around and he goes to the lunch canteen area and he says, I don't eat onions and garlic, is that okay if I can make that kind of thing? He said, yeah, sure. Volunteers were cooking. Volunteers come and say this is without garlic. Then we took a trip outside and even outside someone came and said, oh Prasad, this is for you without garlic. And Prasad, sitting in the closing circle, says, when I came here, I thought welcome home meant this. Right? That people are just saying welcome home. But actually, even in my home, I don't get treated like this. Even in my home, I don't get treated like this. And I know that if I went to any of your homes, I wouldn't get treated like this. This is wrong. And as he leaves, he makes this one powerful statement. He says, I came in here, 4 days ago, I came in here into this collective of Maitri, and I came as an expert. And today, I'm leaving as a beginner. So many times in life, we tend to think we know. And it's all about learning and accumulating and gathering. But how do you unlearn? How do you arrive at a beginner's mind? Because a beginner's mind is open to infinite possibilities. So for us, for my wife and I, we arrived at this process of a beginner's mind. We also had ideas of how we should be the change, how others should be the change, how we should change the world, all these different things. This is a photo of my wife and I in 2005. We went on a walking pilgrimage across India. So Gandhi was a big inspiration for us. We decided to walk. We sold everything we had 6 months into our marriage. Came to the Gandhi ashram in Ahmedabad, and we said we are going to walk south. We are going to eat whatever food is offered and sleep whatever place is offered. And who knew what would happen? But we said it's not one thing to talk about small acts of kindness and service and trust in people. But what happens when rubber meets the road? You know, when your whole livelihood depends on the generosity of others. What would happen? And what is your relationship with the giving and receiving? Because there's a lot of giving and receiving happening. And it's not always, you are not always on the front end of it. Right? You have to receive like very humbly. So we had very, very powerful experiences. This is a photo of Udeshi Kaka. We were walking one day, and Udeshi Kaka comes from like he's greeting us from the side. He says, "Are you guys pilgrims?" I said, "Yes, we are pilgrims." He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we are trying to improve ourselves. We are trying to become better human beings. We are trying to align our hands, head, and heart. And in this process, we are trying to help in whatever small ways we can." Should I move this up? You guys can hear me, right? Yeah. It's like into the 15th story, and finally we are. So Udeshi Kaka comes and says, "I would like to offer you food. But I have to tell you, I'm a very poor person. I'm a very simple person. And our house doesn't have any running water, electricity, but I have this vow that tells me that I want to feed you." I said, "Sure, we'll be happy. I mean, anyway, we are hungry, so we go." So we go to his hut, and he doesn't have much. In these areas, they just have dal and bhat. And the dal is like super spicy. So that you don't eat much. So we had dal and bhat. But he turns to his wife and he says, "Today God's people have come to our house, make something sweet." So his wife realizes that, I have to make something sweet, but they can't afford it. So she sneaks out to the back to go borrow food. Because this idea of Atithi Devo Bhava, whoever comes in front of us, is Atithi, guest is God. So she goes out from the back, brings this food and makes this little shilo. So with our rice and dal, there is some shilo. On the pilgrimage, we don't always get shilo. So I was like excited. I still have a sweet tooth. It's a sweet thing. So usually you save the sweet for dessert, but when you're on a pilgrimage and super deprived and your cravings are getting the best of you, you're like, attack the sweet first. So I was like, okay, dal and bhat I have little, let me attack the shilo. So I take my first bite of the shilo. And I put the bite in my mouth and I realized there is no sugar. They cannot afford sugar. And I realized, what was I eating? Was I eating the shilo for the taste, for this distance just of my tongue, or was I really receiving her bhav? Was I really receiving that bhav? What was it that I really cared for? And I ate that shilo learning a lot, unlearning a lot. And I ate it bite by bite by bite. And then I got to my dal and bhat. But of course, Guri, my wife, and Udeshi Kaka on the left, they decided, they said, no, they did it the right way. So when Udeshi Kaka gets to the shilo, he turns to his wife, looks her in the eyes, and he says, "These are God's men have arrived at our doors. Please go and borrow some food, borrow some sugar." Goes and borrows sugar, brings sugar and offers the sugar. But for me, the big lesson was, this idea of, I don't know if you've ever received food that someone else has had to borrow. What do you do? How do you process that? You're used to saying, okay, I earned this much. I have money, or anything I receive, I'm going to pay this. But what happens? Like, do you say no? Do you say yes? Do you say I'll pay it forward? Do you say I'll pay you back? Like, so many different options, so many different questions. But through all these questions, what you start doing is, it's not really important to ask all these questions with the mind. What's important is to hold space with this person who is giving you love, to receive that love, and allow that exchange, allow that dance to then inform the next action, not the intellectual thinking. So this process of, as I say, give, receive, and dance, this process of shifting from giving and receiving to just dancing, to not keeping track, to allowing this magic to unfold spontaneously, was something we kept learning. So one of the big insights was that we learn generosity from those who have the least. Generosity and kindness, we often tend to think, if you look at the philanthropists of the world that the media celebrates, we talk about the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts of the world. But actually, there are so many people who have absolutely nothing and they are feeding birds in their slums. They may fast, but they will feed the birds. Why? Because my great-grandfather used to do it, so I have to keep that going. There will be people, my own great-grandfather used to feed eggs as his daily practice. One point I was about to receive an award, and they put all this stuff of like the impact that service space has had on the world. And I said, please take it down, because I'm going to tell you a story of my great-grandfather. And I said, this was his practice. He had very little, but he was used to feed eggs. And that too from the ground that was of waste from the mill. And he would crush it himself and then he would feed the ants. What would the McKinsey consultant say about the impact of that? Nothing. But I'll tell you the impact. It changed my grandfather. It changed my grandmother. And I'll tell you the impact of that. It changed my mom. It changed my dad. I'll tell you the impact of that is what we see here. So this is what 4 generations too late. So many times we look at these small things and we say, oh, it's not really all that important, but actually it ends up having a remarkable ripple effect in the world. So these kinds of lessons that we kept on learning, that those who often have the least can teach us the most about generosity, can teach us the most about service and connecting to the internet. Because these guys are, is that me? Oh, that's just construction. It could be my heartbeat. So the big lesson for us was, do we need to have things before we can give? A lot of people would come up to us and say, well, it's great that you want to give, it's great that you want to serve, it's great that you want to practice generosity in the world, but to give, you need to have something. It's a very common thing. But when you start with that assumption, that means that the newborn child has nothing to give. Like, only material stuff is the thing that we can give. Maybe, maybe not. So what if the things wasn't the most valuable part of the giving process? Here's a woman, Shakuben. Shakuben has been a janitor for 23 years. She just sweeps in schools. Her husband died when she was young. She had 2 kids. She took care of them just by sweeping in the schools. One day she heard a story about Gandhiji. Gandhiji at one point lost a small pencil in the ashram. So he's looking everywhere for the pencil. And everyone is like, look, you are father of a nation. You are such a busy man, clearly. But he's looking for a small pencil. And everyone is like, what's going on? Kaka Sahib Khalilkar comes up to him. He says, Babu, here's a dozen pencils. What are you looking for? Why are you looking for that small pencil? However many you want, we'll give you. Babu says, no, I want that pencil. He says, why? Because the child gave it to me. It wasn't the size of the pencil, but it was the power, it was the spirit, it was the inner transformation that was embedded in that small pencil. So Shakuben hears that story. She says, look, I'm sweeping. And every time I sweep, all these people throw away all these erasers and pencils and sharpeners. Maybe others can use it. And I don't know how valuable that is, but I know that I can put a lot of love into it. And so her first bag, I went to her house, and her first bag, she gifted to me. All this stuff from the trash. You can say it's garbage. You can say its value is like almost nothing, but she gave it to me with so much love. I didn't even know how to open it. In the US, you open gifts right in front of them, and I didn't know whether I should do that or not. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep it. And I was very touched though. And then I went to the next event, and at the next event I shared this story, and I happened to have that pink torn bag, and I said, let me tell you Shakuben's story. And this is what she gave. And I opened this pink bag, and I took a fistful of things, and this is what I saw. And I was in tears, the whole panel was in tears. He says, what is this? Is this trash or is this a woman's bhakti? Is this a woman's love? And And where is that love and how do we measure that love? So this kind of thing, small pencils with big heart, like small acts with big heart, and that heart somehow, that spirit, we tend to strip it away. But these people teach us to not strip it away, repeatedly. So if we can value what cannot be counted, this kind of stuff cannot be counted. We are at the, all the chartered accountants are probably are very masters of counting. This kind of stuff cannot be counted. But if we can learn to value what cannot be counted, we arrive at the first insight, first of three insights, which is that the inner transformation matters. What happens inside a person while they are giving is actually embedded in the gift. The gift sails on the waves of that inner transformation. And that matters. In fact, that matters most. So that is the first lesson we learned. And then you can ask, well, what exactly is this inner transformation? The inner transformation, there are a couple of things. At a physical level, what happens to the body? When you do a small act of kindness, this is all science. Science tells you you will live longer. You will have better health. Science tells you you will feel happier. You will have greater gratitude. And because you will have greater gratitude, you will be more connected to the community. And you will be super interconnected with a lot of people. So giving is very good for our body. This is scientifically proven. Any acts of kindness, any volunteering that anyone does, you will live longer, your heart will be better, your immune system will be better. Everything is much better. So giving is good for your body. But that's just the surface. Giving is also good for your mind. This is my friend's daughter, Reva, Madhu's daughter. Reva is meditating there under Buddha. Super cute. Madhu has, so this giftivism, Pradeep bhai giftivism की बात करी, वो गुजरात के साथ में वो कहते हैं Gujarat is always think Gujarat is the center of the world. So giftivism is this idea that in the face of, you can practice generosity even in the face of intense amount of anger, hatred, ill will, negativity. So Madhu lives on the third floor. And one day he parked his car and he was in a rush. So he just hastily parks his car and goes up. When he comes back down, he notices that someone has taken a stone and smashed his whole windshield. So he is like super angry. He says, and then he looked at his car, and sure enough, what had happened is, because he was in a rush, he parked in between two parking spots. So he took the next guy's parking spot also. So this guy was like super upset because someone had just smashed this guy's windshield. So Madhu's response is, Aja Samne. He's like, okay, I know which stone, I know which guy did it, I know his car is right over there. He picks up the stone and he's ready to smash it. And then he realizes, wait, an eye for an eye. Like if I smash his window, tomorrow he will come and slash my tires. Then I'll slash his tires. Then he will come and burn my car. And it's like you burn me, we all burn. It's like no good. That doesn't end it. But his feeling was that of anger. So what do you do? Madhu is like, I need to do something else. And it's like, calm down. All my friends tell me I should breathe slowly. She's like, does breathing and calms down. He's like, he still wants to take. He's like, yeah, this is like, it's not just me. He has offended our whole family. I should respond back. I should retaliate. But he decides to control himself. Goes upstairs. He says, it's not enough just to be silent. I should be proactive. I should engage this negativity with compassion, with love, with generosity. But he doesn't want to do it. Every pore in his cell wants to retaliate, and now at least just wants to stay away from it. To generate love from that, extremely difficult. He decides, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It happened to be Diwali time. This is just last Diwali time. And there were sweets on his table. He says, look, if I have love in this moment, I will take those sweets and go and offer it to them. And he's like, oh man, what? As soon as he thought of the idea, he's like, oh, why did I think of that idea? He's like, sketching it out. Okay, I'm going to do it. So he gears himself up, walks up, and as he says, he lives on the third floor, this guy's on the fourth floor. Just one flight of stairs. Says it took him 15 minutes to climb that one flight of stairs. And he climbs up, knocks on the door. Man of the house is at home, woman of the house is home. And as he describes it, he says, look, I was feeling more compassion, but I wanted to do it. I knew I had to do it. I knew I didn't want to create a world for Reva that was eye for an eye. I wanted to end the negativity with compassion, kindness, at least try. So he decides to knock on the door and says, this is for you. And he kind of runs down. He didn't even really want to have a big conversation. A few months later, there's a knock on his door. On his door, is another neighbor. He says, someone else in the building has given you this envelope. Otherwise, opens the envelope. It's exactly the amount of money it took him to fix his windshield. That person was sorry, and he offered it. And that's the way we use generosity to actually resolve conflict. Because otherwise, what would have happened? They would have had feuds forever and ever and ever. It doesn't go anywhere. But this guy says, I'm going to do that. So what is Reva experiencing right here when she's meditating? Generosity is not just good for the body, it's good for the mind also. Because what happens is that any act of giving, any act, no matter how big or small, creates this mental stillness. And in that mental stillness, we realize that we are interconnected to other people. And that interconnection brings us to enough. What I have is enough. I have everything in this moment. It's enough. You get to that contentment, and then things like simplicity and compassion naturally flow from that. So a small act of kindness is not only good for our physical bodies, but also for our internal bodies, which is our mind. So if we lead with that kind of inner transformation, if we understand that there is that kind of inner transformation that cannot be counted, we arrive at the second big insight, which is for us that everyone can give in their own ways. We tend to box giving in particular categories, but really everyone can give in their own ways. This is one of my friends. Raghu. Raghu unfortunately just passed away last week in a tragic accident. He's 29 years old. Raghu has no legs. He lost his legs to polio. He used to walk on his hands, but a very giving person. So you look at him and you say, even amongst those who don't have anything, this guy doesn't even have legs. But he was an extremely compassionate person. Because he walked on his legs, everyone in the slum community knew him. And in the slum community, there used to be a lot of violence. And whenever he heard that, oh, there was a woman in trouble because of some man decided to get drunk and comes home and takes it all out on the woman of the house, he would go there, hobble up, and he would go and he would start doing satsang with her. And he would go and share stories. And as he leaves, he will offer them to leave a tulsi plant behind. These are all tulsi plants. Now, tulsi plant is sacred, but because the tulsi plant is in the house, they all take care of it. And now it's a live, growing, dynamic thing. And so a couple of weeks later, the Guru will come back. He's like, man, how's the tulsi plant doing? He's not just asking about the tulsi plant. He's asking about, how are you doing? I'm here for you. This man who had nothing, he would go in and this is a photo of him actually doing, he's not just leaving a tulsi plant, he starts doing prayers, he starts sharing stories, he really connects with them. Right? And over the, he gave, I'm having trouble with my clicker, he gave more than 900 plants. I mean, that tells you about the level of violence that goes on. That's kind of tragic, but how amazing is it for a guy to not have anything to use tulsi as a means of service? It's not the value of the stuff, it's not that much, but the impact of it is so incredible that we cannot measure it. It's priceless. It's beyond measure. So this capacity, even people like Raghu can teach us how to be of service. And we all have so much, we all have so many capacities. And yet we feel like, no, only when I get here, only when I get here. I used to think like that, oh, once I need to go to good school, then I need to get a good job, then I need to get the next promotion, then I need to get a house, then I need to, and it's just, it never ends. And at some point you have to say, it's not there, it's here. I used to volunteer at a hospice where dying patients would go, and I would see people on their deathbeds, and sometimes they were like just waiting that, oh, there's a switch, that I can just turn on the switch and now I'll be super peaceful and content. But there is no switch. How you live is how you end up dying. And so that moment to be of service is now. And that's the inspiration that I get from people like Raghu. So Martin Luther King said this beautiful quote. He says, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. He didn't say the smart people can be great because smart people can serve. Or the rich people can be great because the rich people can serve. Or the innovative people can be great because innovative people can serve. He says everyone can be great because everyone can serve. And that was the spirit of all these people. Bashar Khan to Aung San Suu Kyi to Mother Teresa, of course Mahatma Gandhi, and so many such people. They believe that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Everyone has that potential for inner transformation. Not the things. The things is not the stuff worth giving. It is the inner transformation that is worth giving. And we can all tap into that. But the question then becomes, this is a big issue. When we tend to think of giving, we tend to frame it as, I need to give. And I need to create impact in the world. I need to build toilets, I need to build this, I need to build that. And we have this kind of top-down sort of thing. But if you're on the receiving end, that doesn't feel so good. And even the top-down loses some of the spirit of it. But what Shakuben teaches us, wow, I will get a hang of this. Maybe I'll go behind it. What Shakuben teaches us is that while there is sympathy, oh, that poor bichara person doesn't have it. You know, this guy on the side, let me go give to them. That is sympathy, and that has its value. But what Shakuben is doing is something much more. That is inner transformation. When Pradeep Bhai, first time we met, Pradeep Bhai picks a smile deck card. There's a bunch of smile decks outside, each one with his own card. His card says, go out and don't just give something to a homeless person, but spend 15 minutes. And he did that. The next day he says, you know, actually I've given a lot to other people, but I've not actually spent time. So there is a shift from sympathy to empathy. One of these days. There is a shift from this external impact, like what is changing outside, to inner transformation, which is empathy. And this is a very significant shift. Sympathy says you are in trouble and I see your pain. Empathy says your pain is also my pain is your pain. You are taking ownership of it. When you are having a conversation with someone on the streets and treating that person as an equal, it's no longer about that. It's no longer about you saying, okay, I have and I will give to you because I know I'm smart enough to earn a living and so I am and so I'll give to you. That's good. There's some sympathy there. But this empathy is something much deeper. Right? Empathy is something that says, your pain, I feel your pain, and you know what? I'm also in pain sometimes. And by this interaction, that pain is alleviated because I feel connected. I feel held. I feel cradled in our interconnection. So, in our world, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, there's this whole thing where they say that basically, you know, if you don't have anything in the world, then you need to first get from poor, you need to build up and come to middle class, and then bit by bit you come to safety and belonging, esteem, and then finally you get to inner transformation. This is how trillions of dollars are spent in the world. But now they are saying it's not quite a pyramid like that. So now they are saying it's more like vitamins. You don't take all vitamin C and then say I'll get to vitamin D later. You have to take your own balance. I mean, that makes sense. So just like that, just because someone is out on the streets, someone may not have as much as we do, doesn't mean they don't have the capacity to give. And we keep learning that repeatedly. What happens if you treat everyone as a potential change agent? Everyone as someone that not just that you're giving to, but someone that you can receive from. That really changes the whole dynamic in very different ways. So we all need vitamin G, as we call it. So what happens when everyone starts to grow? What if we all decide that we are all going to practice acts of love, acts of generosity? What would happen? What would the world look like? This is our friend Uday Bhai. I don't know if how many of you have heard of Mr. Uday Bhai Rickshawala. Uday Bhai is like, he calls himself on the Rickshawala. Uday Bhai does something remarkable. This is his rickshaw. In his rickshaw, he doesn't charge anyone. Usually when you go, you take a rickshaw. The rickshaw will take you around and you'll be like, oh, that's just on the way, and then you're like, oh no, it's not on the way. Then you are upset, you come home, you tell everyone, oh, these rickshaws have gone down the drain. Actually, the whole country has gone down the drain, you know. And you're talking like this, and you're justified because actually you were looped around. It was not honest. But if you go and live with this person, if you go and live with the rickshaw, you realize that he actually has nine people staying this much of a space. You know, this is a shared space. They all sleep outside. And he also has kids, and he also has dreams for his kids. And he feels shortchanged by the whole system. So he says, oh, Vakra mil gaya. Yes, let me go take him around, you know. And he does that because he feels shortchanged, and this is the only way he can see out of it. So you can say, okay, well, you know, not ethical for sure, but you can understand where he's coming from. So how do you break this stalemate? And both sides are justified. Uday says, I will break that statement with law. Says, if you come and sit in my rickshaw and there is no charge, I don't have a meter. Someone before you has paid for you and you get to pay forward whatever you want for people after you. And everyone scratches their head and says, what do you mean? Like you just trust people to pay whatever they feel like paying? Then people don't know what they pay anything. And this is the standard, this is Karma Kitchen, based on the same idea. Right? If you go to a restaurant and you tell them someone before you has paid for you and you get to pay forward, who is going to pay? Because people are all just selfish. That turns out to be not so accurate. It actually turns out that they come in as rickshaw and yeah, some pay less, some end up paying more, some end up paying a lot more. And on balance, the money part evens out. So people ask him, how's it working? Are you able to sustain? He says, yeah, here's when, we told him, make sure you take detailed notes and keep a book. So he has a book, and he'll show you. But then he will say, not just this, I have another book. Let's see if you check this book out. And he says, well, what is this book? This is the book where I ask them, how did you feel sitting in my rickshaw? And people write these stories of incredible transformation. They said, look, there is no goodness in the world, but this rickshaw driver who needs so much just for his day-to-day is willing to bet on the goodness of my heart, is willing to believe in the goodness of humanity for his own survival. And they say from now on, from today, I'm going to do an act of kindness every day, or from today I'm going to take on this practice, or I'm going to change this in my life, or I'm going to forgive this person. So many stories of transformation. But if you just look at the balance sheet, you are just going to say, okay, well, they got a broke even. Right? It was okay, maybe it worked, maybe it won't work. But this whole value that was generated, where does that value go? That builds connection between people, that sensitizes people to each other. My Kaki always says this beautiful thing, she says in India 20 years ago, whenever you go on a train, people would share food with each other. Now, you share food and they'll be like, no, what's in there? I don't know, who are you? Do I trust you? All these kind of questions come up. In fact, I was giving a talk one time and this kid decides to go and say, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to do a kind act for someone else, and I'm going to do it with this inner transformation and a lot of power and mukti. So he goes to a pastry shop, gets his favorite pastry, and then he says, okay, who do I give it to? Finds another kid, and he says, here you go, kid, this is for you. This kid on the street says, no, I don't trust you. Who knows what you put in it? Maybe it's a prank. Maybe you're trying to make fun of me. So this kid had to take a bite from that and say, no, look, it's okay. He had that bite. And then only that kid received his gift. So this is the kind of distrust. We have a crisis of distrust in the world, and generosity can bridge that. And that is what people like Uday show us repeatedly. So where are these kinds of heroes? They're not to be found in like the elite places of the world, but in the rickshaws of the world, in the slums of the world. Oh, and he does all kinds of things. He says, then he got into it. He says, wow, this is about generosity, but like let's just go pull out, So his wife will make some theta sometimes he'll have biscuits. He has a little trash bin over there. He calls it a library. It's not a library, but he calls it a library. With like a bunch of different nice reading material right as you face it. Very sweet guy. But he's generating a very different kind of value. A kind of value that is, we have a shortage of that value in our world. So if everyone's generosity gets connected, the way Uday is doing, if we all practice these small acts of generosity and that generosity gets connected, we shift from transaction to trust. And we start building a gift culture. A gift culture is no longer about just me and mine. It's not a transaction, you give me this much, I'll give you this much. But it says, oh, I received your gift. Like from Uday, who gave us a gift, he gave to borrow food. I received that. Because it wasn't just the food, I was receiving his intention of love. And then with gratitude, I carry it forward. So that spirit of inner transformation that he had, that gratitude that I had, those things matter. So this is our possibility. This is the kind of thing that we are trying to do with service space. I don't know if you guys have seen, you really fixed this. I don't know what you did. It's good. Chartered accountants, they've got some software in them. So we hold space. Hold space online. If you look at our world today, there's not enough good news. And if you don't see good news, you're not going to have faith in God. What are you going to you know, if you're a child and you just read the front page of Times of India every morning, are you going to really believe in people? Or are you going to be like that guy in the train, like, no, I don't really trust your food because, you know, everyone steals and everyone out to rob people, everyone harms other people. Some do, it's not to deny that, but that's not all of us. Humanity's goodness has always prevailed over the negativity. So we have this portal called Good, Daily Good. It's been running for many years now, over a decade, or 15 years now. Every day sends out a little bit of good news. So like that we hold space online. Then we have projects that hold space online and offline. Where this is a smile card. How many of you guys know about smile cards? Or some, okay, I'll explain smile cards. Smile cards are awesome. I don't know how many smile cards you guys know about smile cards. I don't know how many smile cards we have today, but there is a smile deck which is different than a smile card. But a smile card looks like this. It says you have just been tagged with an act of kindness. You don't know who did this for you, but you can pay it forward. Keep the chain going. So many people at the toll booth, they will pay a toll for the car behind them. And it's the most amazing thing to watch. I don't know if you've ever done it, but try it next time. Like pay a toll for the car behind them. Oh, you've got a smart card. Oh, wow, thank you. So you go to the toll booth and you say, okay, how much was my toll? Okay, can I pay for the car behind me? And the guy usually will be like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you want to do that? You know? And then you explain to him, and I'm sure people behind you are honking their horns, but then you say, okay, this is for the car behind you, and give them this card. The card says, smile, you've just been tagged. Experiments in anonymous kindness is the name of the game, and now you are to do something for someone else. So one of my friends did this in, I think, one of the Bombay tolls. Right? He pays for the car behind him, and the car behind him is like races forward, and they're all in there, and they're like running him, chasing him down, and they're like waving at him, thank you, you know. And what is that connection? What does it mean? You can imagine two toll booth rates. In one, we are all paying for each other. At the end of the day, we collect 10,000 rupees, say. In the other one, we are paying for ourselves. Right? And let's say we collect 10,000 rupees. In the other one, we are all paying for each other. We are all paying for the car behind us. Same. At the end of the day, the tally will be roughly 10,000 rupees. But we feel connected. That car in front of me is connected to me, and I'm connected to the car behind me. There is something about that connection, about that possibility. So this is an experiment. There are millions of these smile cards floating around. And then some people came and said, oh, well, we run out of ideas. What should we do? So then we came up with a deck of cards. So there's a bunch of decks here. And it's like a deck of cards. And then each suit is a different theme. And the ideas get harder as you get to the ace cards. So you shuffle up, people say, okay, we'll do an act of kindness, which is what he drew. And then you have to go out and do it, and you come back and you share stories. Right? It's an incredibly meaningful thing to do. So this kind of stuff, which seems so small. One of my friends was the founder of Sony Entertainment Television. So one time we had a meeting, and he said, Nipun, I like all your projects. You guys are building websites for non-profits. This is what we used to do, and we built thousands of websites using volunteers. And he says, I understand that, but this smile card and act of kindness, like, I don't really understand, you know. So I said, okay, yeah, we'll talk about the projects, you understand. So we are having a meeting, I must have been in my mid-20s. So right in between, he gets a phone call from his wife in Singapore. So he says, honey, what can I get you? I was kind of curious, you know, I was like, someone who's so rich, like, what could his wife want? So I was kind of snooping and saying, what is that your wife ask for? Can't she go and buy anything you want? I mean, why would you, you know? So he says, she asked for juicy fruit chewing gum. Because in Singapore, you can't buy chewing gum. So we were like, okay, I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. Oh, okay. Phone call ends there, our conversation ends there. A few minutes later, I have to drop you off to the airport. So I go out to get into my car. I go to my car and I have a flat tire. I call my mom. I said, Mom, this guy needs to go. You need to come quickly, you know, in her car. So she comes in her car and we take to that. Now, because of all this mishap, we got a little delay. So he was not going to have time for buying his juicy fruit chewing gum for his wife. And because my mom came, out of respect, he takes us to a juice place. And so we are sitting at the airport, having some juice, and we all get up from our table. Right as we get up, there's an extra bag on the table. I said, it's not mine. My mom was like, it's not mine. he says, I don't know, I don't think it's mine, let me see. Picks it up, and he sees, opens it up. There's a juicy fruit chewing gum with a smile card. I signaled to my mom. My mom went and got a little small juicy fruit, 79 cents, even at the airport, right? Otherwise, it's much cheaper with the smile card. This guy who had everything has got almost tears in his eyes. And he looks me in the eye and he says, oh, I get it. It's not about how valuable this juicy fruit chewing gum is. It's the thought, it's the love, right? It's the sentiment. And it's this idea that this person doesn't even want anything. They don't want anything back. They're saying, go pay it forward. Don't look back and say, who did this? Go pay it forward. Do something kind for someone else. So that is powerful. So we have a second kind of projects which are online and offline. And the third kind, as you heard, was Karma Kitchen, which is offline, all in a physical space. Where people are all, everyone pays forward for each other, and no one can believe. If you ask economists, they come and they try to do all these theories and have all these concepts, and they say, how can it actually work? We are like, if you really want to understand, don't think about it, first come and volunteer. There was a woman who's the head of, she was on the board of San Francisco Chronicle, one of the biggest papers in San Francisco, the biggest in San Francisco. And she comes and she says, I want to do a story. We said, yeah, to do a story, you have to understand what Karma Kitchen is. If you want to understand what Karma Kitchen is, you have to volunteer. Because intellectually, see, you hear it, yeah, someone pays before, someone it pays forward, but really would people respond to love? So she comes, and we have her. This is like a board member of, trying to do a story, and has this big story, and she heard about it from a celebrity, and this whole thing, and we are telling her to come volunteer, and we tell her to clean tables. The whole day she's bussing tables. She has never bussed tables in her life. So she's like here bussing tables all day, and she, at the end of the day, she's exhausted. And no one even knows that she's this person. She's just a volunteer. Everyone is like a volunteer, and everyone's doing their thing. And some guests come, and they're not in a good mood, and she has to deal with that. Some guests come, and they are absolutely elated. She has to deal with that. So she deals with all this stuff. Right? And at the end of the day, she goes and writes her column, and she says, I have never worked so hard in my life, and I am super exhausted, but I have no idea why I'm still smiling. I was with people who have never worked together in their life. This was a group of 12 volunteers who took on a whole restaurant. But we all felt connected to each other, we all felt connected to the people we are serving, and I have a smile on my face. Why was it? That is the power of generosity. When people, even if we, there's this whole triangle thing that I often tell people. You can walk at the base towards each other, you're going to get closer to each other. But that is one kind of intimacy. There is a different kind of intimacy where you're walking towards that one point, and as you walk on your path and someone else walks on their path, you come closer to each other. So all these 10 people who serve together, feel so connected. Although they may not even know their names, right? You may not even know what they do for work. There are so many people I know that I just love them, and I have no idea what they do for their job or how much they're worth or what, but I just love them and they love me. Right? And it's sufficient. So this capacity, this spirit of generosity can be unleashed in offline spaces like that as well. And there are countless stories of Karma Kitchen which you can share later if you have any questions. And there are so many. We run a magazine in the same way, Pay It Forward. We run a bunch of online portals. There's this awakening circles that we host where my mom, every Wednesday, we open up our home. And my mom says, use just space. Move the furniture to the side, you can have silence for 1 hour. Right? No feature, no agenda, just silence for 1 hour. Second hour, circle of sharing. So everyone will share whatever aha moment they have. And people share like incredible. If we all meditated for 1 hour and then we shared, versus just sharing without meditating, the things that come up are so different. The way in which we listen is so different. It's a really fascinating thing. And people share incredibly moving things. And so you don't need to go to this place or that place. It's just from us, from everyday people. They have such a deep repertoire of wisdom, but we just need to unlock it. And then the third hour, my mom said, I'll feed whoever comes. At first it was just me and another friend, like 17 years ago. And then just in our home, my mom has fed more than 40,000 people. And now it's like people come and say, oh, auntie, what's the plan? How do you plan to escape this up? And my mom says, look, we just want to confuse you with gratitude. We have no other plan. somewhere, somehow, if your cup of gratitude overflows, you will pay it forward somewhere. And whenever you pay forward, that's our home. Good enough. And like that, so many, now in 70 places around the world, people are saying, wow, this is a simple thing now. Why don't I do it? And I was like, yeah, you should do it. And they do it. And people benefit there. And it ripples out, one after another. So like that, there are like endless stream of projects which create this kind of community, this kind of connection that is rooted in inner transformation. So, if we can value what can't be counted, this was the first insight, right? These are the 3-4 insights that I've shared. If we can value what can't be counted, we arrive to this understanding that inner transformation matters. It's not just the stuff, it's the ways on which the stuff flows. If we lead with that inner transformation, we come to this understanding, at least I have, that everyone can give in their own unique way. This is not to belittle the people who give with their monetary or material base. Those are also needed. If I was hungry, I would hope that you guys would have compassion and would feed me. But how we feed, what is above underneath it, makes a huge amount of difference. And if you tune into that, you realize that everyone can give in their own little way. Maybe it's a pencil from the garbage, but it actually can have a very significant amount of impact in the world. And the last is that if everyone can give, and if all that generosity gets connected, then we can rebuild a gift culture. Then we no longer have to go on a train and say, oh yeah, I don't trust the other person, I don't want their gifts. We can actually do it in a way, we can create a different kind of world, where we are connected, where we trust each other, where we honor the goodness in each other, and not just train people as selfish creatures, which we are not. We can be, we have a base instinct, but we have the capacity to rise much higher than that. And that's the invitation. So can we be the change? This is like, can we look for that smile card? Can we do, like, I live on the 4th floor, in an apartment complex in Berkeley, and my neighbor always leaves his trash outside. So, not always, many times. So sometimes when I'm going down, I have 2 hands, I have empty hands, I will take the trash, and I will leave a smile card. A few months later, I had some boxes, I left my boxes outside, and they were gone. And lo and behold, there was a smile card. And now on our floor, the 4 apartments on our floor, everyone is looking for doing, oh, who did that? Who did that? Who did that? Instead of saying, oh, who was me? And who did this to me? And who did that to me? I'm going to get to next time. It's like, oh, who made me smile? How can I step up that generosity? How can I do even more next time for someone else? And no one knows who is doing what. It's like everyone is doing for each other. It just unleashes that wave of generosity. And we have that potential all the time, everywhere. We just need to step into that. And I think we can help each other step into that. The big advantage of this, I was talking with some people, some big people, they said, yeah, this is great, but just think of the advertising, think of all the forces that are pulling us in the other direction. And I said, yeah, that's true. But on one side, you have all these different resources saying you are selfish, you stay here, you stay here. But on the other side, we have nature. Nature, if we are kind, guaranteed, if you are touched by kindness, you will pay it forward. You will feel like paying it forward. Not because some grand agent has got you, thinking in this way, but because that's our nature. Right? So that capacity is there. This is on the left is my little cousin, and when he was young, on his birthdays, I would say, Neil, I will come if you do some acts of kindness. So we do all kinds of acts. So every birthday we select different acts of kindness. This is one of his earlier years, maybe it says free car, but we were not giving free cars. It was a free car wash. So we would go out and he would get all his friends and they would put up this little sign and they had a jingle and it said, we are giving free car washes. And people would come and they would they had a tire rinsing team and soap team and pre-rinse and all this stuff they had. It was completely imperfect, but they did it. And people felt so good, the car drivers, they came and said, why are you doing this? And then we say to practice generosity. It's my friend's birthday and we are just practicing generosity. Thank you for giving us the chance. They were completely blown away. But more than that, these guys were blown away. And they were like, when we grow up, we want to volunteer we want to intern for service space. And we said, what's the age limit? I said, we just jokingly said 14. So then when they were 14, they were like, this is their best friends, Neil and Dylan. They're like, we are ready to volunteer. So we told them to do a kindness challenge as one of their volunteering activities. Every day, a different act of kindness for 30 minutes. So the first week, they figured out all the things that they could do, they did them. And next week, they started to get creative. And then the third week, they started to overflow in places where they need to be needed. And they did some incredible acts of kindness. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, they do all the basic acts of kindness at first, help somebody who was needy. But after that, they started, like Neil goes one time, and there were 5 people bullying another kid in his school. And Neil goes up and he says, no, you can't do that. You can't teach those 5. You are 5. He's only 1. You don't do that. Stop it. Cut it out. So when he came and told us this story, we said, Neil, weren't you afraid? He says, I just did it spontaneously. But I felt like I had truth on my side. So I had a kind of strength. Because I knew that's not right of them to beat that other one kid. And then, like a week after that, he goes out and he sees this other kid who has a disability. And because he has a disability, he's like, some of the spit from his mouth is coming out and he's kind of grossed out by it. So he says, I don't want to talk to him. But then he says, no one is talking to him. And because no one is talking to him, he's like, let me just see if I can reach out and see if I can look beyond just the physical appearance. And he comes back to us and he says, I actually befriended the guy. And he's really cool. He can't speak without his computer synthesizer, but he's got some great dance moves. And he taught me these great dance moves. And he says, everyone has a gift, right? So he said, Neil, what if we didn't have anything cool to give you? We just didn't connect with you. And Neil looks and says, actually, I feel like if we listen long enough, everyone has a gift and you will find that gift. You just have to listen long. This is a 14-year-old telling us this. So bit by bit, like the ripples go on. Like time, we don't need to tell them to be kind. In our family now, we have a new tradition. On like Christmas, usually we give gifts to everyone. Now we do acts of kindness for other people. And so if one of my cousins loves art, so I will do something for art for someone else, and I'll write the story, put it in an envelope, and the tree will be full of envelopes. Everyone's different way forward acts for each other. Of course, for the kids, we have other gifts also. But it changes the whole ecosystem, right? Whether in a family or perhaps even in our world, because this is natural to us. This is Mamu, kindness for animals. Mamu is the place where he's a janitor. 50% of his money forever has been going to dogs. He loves dogs. He gets them all these parlegies and all this unhealthy stuff, but whatever he loves, he wants to feed the dogs, and he's always doing that. And now he's even giving them all this dog food after we talk to him about it. This is Mamu, he's an incredible guy. This is a woman, this is a young girl who says, I sit with an elderly person every night to listen to their stories. Yes, I am the change. This is Raju, who lives in the slums. He says, I donate blood. Yes, I am the change. This is Stephanie, who says, whenever I buy fruit, I bring my own bag. I dream of a world free of plastic waste. Yes, I am the change. This is Dennis, who says, I travel by cycle, trying to save the environment. Yes, I am the change. This is Nanuma. Nanuma says, Maru ghar, Mulakam Shah said. She gave up she had a home in the slums, and she says, I want this to be a school. So she goes to an NGO and she says, this is for you guys, I donate. And they said, Nanuma, your family will be after us, So she goes home, gets all her family, takes all of them there, and he says, they are all ready to sign that I want to donate every single thing I have for the education of these young kids. This is Nanuma in the slums. Yes, I am the change. She is definitely the change. This is Mukesh Bhai, who is a monk at Sandra Mandir in Nadia, and he says, I want kindness for the mind, and he goes and meditates with people. Yes, he is the change. So we can do no great things, only small things with great love. I'll end with this story. Parag, do you have my phone? So this is the retreat that I was talking about. And this is a silent dinner that we had one night. This is a silent dinner that we had. It's really beautiful, like nice candles everywhere. And after dinner, we had a community night where everyone can share their songs and stories and things like that. And so this is like people starting to come in. And you can see it's a little bit cold. It's out in the open. And this guy, his name is Harsh. Here he's talking about, I share books and good intent. Yes, I am the change. So Harsh decides to do a small act of kindness. So Harsh is sitting next to a woman he doesn't know. Her name is Ritu. And let's see, how do I explain this? This is a letter he gave to Ritu the next day. So what would happen, Harsh, okay, so it's cold. Harsh is sitting next to Ritu. Harsh has a shawl. So Harsh says, okay, here, just have my shawl. You know. And she says, no, I'll get it. I'll go into my room and I'll get some. He's like, no, you can have it. I'll get it back from you tomorrow. So he clarified when he's going to get it back. And then he goes in his room, he reflects on it, and the next day Ritu gets this letter from Harsh. Dear Ritu, please allow me to gift this shawl to you. This is an offering to make me empty. This shawl was and is used by my mother from her pre-marriage time. I had it around me all my childhood. When I was out of home for college and job, this shawl has always been my mother's blessing for me. For me, this is all I need to encounter winter anywhere. I never even have a doubt of feeling cold when I have this shawl on me. People ask me, am I okay? Only a shawl? But my reply always remains, this is the warmest thing I need. Really, I used it and shared it with a couple of people who were not feeling well, and they did improve their health. They did improve their health by the next day, but I realized the last time that I was almost asking for it back every 2 days after I gave it to anyone. Right? I realized this had become an attachment where all attachments need to be freed from. So yesterday too, I told you that give me this tomorrow. So yeah, that's it. Harsh is this kind of a guy. He says, yeah, that's it. It needs to go. Today morning itself, I got this new warm jacket gifted. Someone gifted him a nice warm jacket. So the universe is already taking care of me. Thank you for accepting my humble gift with loads of love, Harsh. This shawl that he had, that his mom had from her pre-marriage days, he's giving it. Every time he gives it, he says, I want to secure and make sure I get it back. And here he is saying, I need to be free of my attachment. Please allow me to make this gift to you. Ritu, who gets this, she has never received such a gift in her life. She reads this letter and she starts crying. In fact, a week later we asked her, can you scan the letter and send it this one? And she said, every time I pick up the letter, I start crying. This is not the shawl. It is the power. It is the spirit that we put into that giving. It is not just sympathy. It is the empathy that moves us to do this stuff. So I think that's the end. Okay, I'll show one last video. We have nice speakers here. So this is a super cute video. What would the world look like if we all, and this has a Gujarati song in the background. It's a short 2-minute video. But what would the world look like if we all tapped into the spirit of generosity, of this anonymous kindness, of care, of compassion? And I'll let the video speak for itself. Oh, it's over there. Ah. We are upgrading.
Ooh.
interesting. I think we have time for a few questions, if there are questions. Yeah. He was asking to share this story, which some of you might have heard of. It became very famous, the story of Julio Diaz. Kind of like Madhu's giftivism story, this is a story of the power of generosity in face of distress. So Julio Diaz was going back home one day, and coming off at a station, a kid comes up with a knife and he says, "Give me all your money." And so he says, "Okay, yeah, you have a knife? Okay, sure." He gives him the money. And then this guy, it turns around and Julio says to him, to the guy who's mugging him, he says, wait, it's a little cold. Do you want my jacket too? So the guy gets totally confused, right? They don't teach you this in whatever, robbery 101. So he's like, what, do I go back to take some more time? So he's like, yeah, actually, it is a little cold. And he goes and grabs this. But then this time when he comes back, the interaction between them is totally different. And now Julio is giving to him. And so Julio makes another offer. He says, I'm about to go have dinner. Do you want to join me? Julio, that robber, that teenage guy, is like, what do you mean? Am I supposed to go out to dinner with people that I've just finished robbing? So he's like, okay, well, maybe. So he decides to go. And they have dinner. And Julio is nice to everybody at the restaurant. Because as he says, this is how my mother raised me. So he was saying hello to the dishwasher and everybody. And then at the end, Julio, it's the time to pay the bill. And Julio gets the check. And Julio says, hey buddy, I would love to treat you, but you have my wallet. So the kid, again, doesn't know what to do. He's like, yeah, that's true. I stole the wallet from you. But now you're like treating me with love. I don't know what to do. He gives the wallet back. And Julio says, I have one more thing to ask of you. Can you give me your knife too? And he gives him the knife. And that is not the work of an NGO. That is not the work of a corporation. That is not the work of any brigade that says we're going to go change the world. That is one ignited person that is able to touch that other person in a very dynamic, spontaneous way by their beings merging. So what happens if we can all practice this? It doesn't need to be so dramatic, but in small ways. Even if someone becomes angry with us, what if we rebound that with compassion? If someone insults us, what if we rebound that with compassion? If we're hurt by something, what if we suspend judgment and rebound it back with love? So that potential is there for all of us in every moment. People like Julio Diaz inspire me. There are so many people like that in the service-based ecosystem that really, there's a guy named Pancho who he does things like, one time he was getting beat up by these people who were in the middle of a gang initiation, and Pancho looks at them in the eye and says, brother, you don't need to be doing this. And the guy is just like, man, instead of running away or beating me back, he's looking at me back with love and saying, you don't need to be doing this. They got so scared because they didn't know how to deal with the guy that they were beating up, and this guy's looking back saying, I'm not afraid of you, I'm just sending you love. They run away. As they run away, Pancho runs after them. And these guys are like, oh my God, this guy's like that, and he's running after him. He's like, no, man, I'm your neighbor. I live on 1736 Fruitvale Avenue. My home doesn't have any doors. You should come to my house. He's inviting his robber to his house. And that's a very different kind of love, right? There are people who practice that kind of love, and that is dramatic, right? And we all don't need to do it in such dramatic, bold ways, but we can all do it in small ways. So let's say, yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that story. I haven't told that story in a long time. So yeah, if you have questions or comments or thoughts, we can take those. And if you don't, we can hold silence too. Yeah?
For example,
I will need a mic there just because I can't hear you. There's still people on this side too. I forgot. I never made eye contact on this side.
so I think that people would like to hear the full story of the Nanuma, because everybody will be curious. The Nanuma, I think, slum lady who was living with the family members and give a small space for Bulka's school. But the question will come, then afterwards where they have stayed?
Yeah. So
What happened to them?
No, Nanima's family was not living with her. She was living in a small place. So she had a small place, but right where she was, in front of her, there was a Angarwadi that was going on. And so she saw that in these slums, these kids, instead of going out and collecting rags and sorting plastic and making 8 rupees a day, she says, oh, they were getting some education, and this is a good thing. This is a good thing for everybody. So she had her space there, which our family would have inherited. Our family, as in other people also in the slums, they would have received the rights to that house. She was living by herself there. But she says, no, I want to give it. And then when that NGO says, no, you can't, your family will be upset with us, we don't want to divide families, she says, I'm going to bring all my families, and they all watched her sign. They said, yeah, we all want that too, because we know it's good for the community. So they were not just thinking of themselves, they were thinking of the other kids in their community. And it was a small place, no doubt, but it was all out of my hands, and she wanted to give it. Yeah. Can we throw some more light on the retreat that we talked about? Yeah, so the retreat was, we called it Gandhi 3.0 retreat. So Gandhi 1.0, as we call it, was Gandhiji. One of him and many of us. Then Gandhi 2.0, I'm from the software world, so everything is a version number. So Gandhi 2.0 was Vinobaji. And for Vinobaji, it wasn't one to many, it was one to one. He was constantly walking and connecting with people. And now, we are now in times of Gandhi 3.0, where it's many to many. So if you look in nature, you find examples of many to many everywhere. For example, one of the things I talked about was these oak trees in the U.S. They had this big hurricane, Hurricane Katrina. It destroyed everything that came in its way. I mean, all man-made structures are completely gone, except for oak trees. Oak trees have roots which are interconnected to other oak trees, sometimes for 100 miles. And these oak trees have survived centuries of tornadoes and hurricanes and all kinds of natural disasters. Why? Because their roots were interconnected to each other. So many times we just look at stuff on the surface, but if we don't have roots, if we have roots, we are planted. So what are our roots? If we tend to think, oh, this is my action, and I have done this, and this is the fruits that I deserve, you're just looking on the outside. But as you go deeper inside, wisdom arises when you can connect the branch tips to its roots. So all that we measure, sometimes how much produce did this tree create? But if we start going a lot deeper, you realize that in my essence, I'm actually connected to your essence. And that kind of oneness changes the way in which you look at the world, the way in which you act in the world. So it was a whole retreat of people from all walks of life. On one side you had royalty from Japan. You had people that have done massive amount of relief work in the world. And on the other hand, you had people who had been in 600 villages, and doing this work of generosity and love, not just development, but well-being of a village. And we said, this is the Gandhi 3.0, many to many. So let's all come together for that vision. And it was incredibly powerful. Right? The 2 stories I shared, there were so many stories like that. But it's just good people coming together. And without a center. It's not like, oh, I will now tell you how. But it is this idea that when you hold circle, when you hold space, there is a collective intelligence that emerges. And so it was an experiment in that. I don't know if you guys have heard of jelly bean experiment. So they put a whole bunch of people. This is replicated scientifically many, many times. They put a jar of jelly beans in the center and say, okay, everyone guess how many jelly beans in this jar. And it turns out that the collective guess, average of the collective guesses, is going to be much closer than any individual guess. So there is this kind of multiplicity of views. In Jainism, there's this concept of anikandvat. So how do you hold multiplicity of views and grow together? And the internet allows us this capacity to create this. So it was a retreat around that. Yeah, a whole bunch of hands. So I don't know how we do this. Sure. Yeah. Right. And then we'll go here.
Can I give you personal?
Yes, you can be personal, as personal as you want.
Just your entire time to this activity, or you have some other activity? I mean,
Yeah, how do I support myself? Do I do other things on the side, or is this it? This is it. The thing is, that question, although it sounds like a reasonable question, is a very man-made question. Because I didn't have that question when I was in my mother's womb. I didn't say, what's my 5-year plan when I was in my mother's womb. I trusted nature. If I look around, I don't see birds with bank accounts. Right? Only human beings have that. If I look on the ground, I don't see carrots coming out or tomatoes coming out with a price tag. So these are man-made designs, and these worries, if we lose the roots, then we feel insecure. And our idea of security, when we lose connection to the roots, we are insecure. And when we are insecure, we say, I need to gather, accumulate, and have. But how big are your pockets after all? Not too big. How strong is that security? Not too strong. But the real security is connecting, going deeper in, right? Going deeper into the roots. And that's a process, and that's a journey. I can't say that I'm smiling and not worried ever. Many times I'd be like, oh wow, I wonder how this can work out. But that's the commitment that in facing that inquiry, in facing that question, I'm going deeper in. So although I may take a short-term hit in terms of perhaps my material sustenance, I'm taking an internal advance, right? Because I'm getting deeper connected into my roots. And we learned this day after day on the walking pilgrimage, where we walked 1,000 kilometers, and we continue to learn this. So I haven't sold my labor, so to speak, for the last, 12 years. What year are we? We're 2014. Yeah, more than 12 years now. And so far so good. Tomorrow maybe I have to, make what up on the side. If my mom gets sick and there's no insurance or something, I'm happy to do that. But this is an experiment for me to grow deeper. I don't think it's necessarily about doing exactly what I'm doing, but I think the value and the principle is let's go deeper into our roots, whatever path that takes for me. So I live on gifts, and it's been great. Yes, exactly. Oh wow, thank you.
Would you please share the story of Ishwar Kaka?
Yeah.
Ishwar Kaka. Story
Sure.
of Ishwar Kaka.
Yeah, Ishwar Kaka made about 5 lakh toilets in the world. He started maybe about over 120 organizations. He was a Padma Shri. He passed away a few years ago. But the most inspiring thing about it, on his deathbed, his son asked him, Papa, what is your message? And he says that when you do seva, don't do it with bhav, do it with bhav. That was the essence of his work. He would say it's very easy to do hardware. It's very easy to have 4 walls and a toilet. What's hard to do is software, which is to construct minds. Constructing toilets is easy, constructing minds is much harder. And so Ishwar Kaka dedicated his whole life to that. Incredible human being. I would urge you all to go and see. Google him. When he passed away, I wrote a little profile on him, which went, in many places. So he shares his story. But a very, very inspiring person, and it shows that, like at the end of the day, a true Gandhian is going to be light. So when he was dying, he had 24 different cuts in his body and stage 4 cancers, and I think he had multiple cancers. So his body was completely gone. And at one point, they needed to find a vein, and they were having a hard time. So they said, Ishwar, we'll have to do a slit in your throat. It's going to hurt, but we're going to give you anesthesia. Ishwar Kaka says, oh, no need. You do whatever you want with my body. And everyone's like, no, this doesn't work like that, Ishwar Kaka. This is going to really hurt. He's like, no, it says, when a coconut is young and tender, the outside and inside are all together. But as it gets ripe, your outside and inside are easily separable. So this is just my outside. I'm connected to my inside. You do whatever you want with the outside. And they actually did it. I talked to that doctor, Ishwar Kaka, of course, someone I knew personally and very inspired by. But I talked to that doctor, and the doctor said, I did not give him anesthesia. And it is true that man did not even flinch. He was just gone. So when you say 500,000 toilets, 5 lakh toilets, that is pales in comparison to the change he was being, to the person he had become, to his capacity to let go of the outside to renounce. And that is service. Then that has real bhakti, that has bhav. That is the stuff that will go on, not the rest of the material stuff.
Nipun Mehta, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I can't give up my grades, so two questions.
Go ahead.
One is, I believe you did some job before you took that pilgrimage. So what were the change triggers?
In my personal life?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were many triggers. You know, I think when I was in my teen years, I had two tracks. So one was, immigrant family from Gujarat, parents saying, we gave up a lot and now you can go to school. And so I went to a good school and I was doing engineering and things like that. And then underneath it, there was another track which said, I want to explain, what is all this about? Is it just about getting a bank balance, spending it, and then dying? Or is it about something else? What is it about? So there was always that inquiry ever since I was young. And then there was a mainstream. And at some point, around about 17, the inner started to overtake the outer. So I was working. I had a dream job. In my third year of college, I got a job and they paid for my school and everything. It was amazing. It's in computer science, probably one of the best jobs I could ever get. But yet I got 2 promotions in a span of 6 months, and I was making a lot of money at the time for myself. I was very simple from the get-go. I never had that interest. But I said, to what end? Like, I felt like I could always go a little deeper, And then the Silicon Valley's gold rush came, and everyone who was my profile and my age was starting .coms and making a lot of money. Or not making at that time initially. They were like flaunting about lots of money and like showing off and all this stuff. And at that point, I said, I just feel like this is a path of crash and burn. That really the transformation, there's a different path, and I want to see if we can leverage non-financial incentives for doing this. Like, I want to do work of love, amazing work, and I want to gift it. I don't want to put a price tag on it. And I want to be like that tree that gives its fruit away, and then everyone in the community knows that this is a tree. What is the tree going to do? It has no pockets. It has to give its fruits there. So when you walk, you will offer me a little water. And as you offer that little water, I will grow and I'll have more, fruits, and I will share those fruits, and I don't need to keep much for myself. And it's just such a fulfilling cycle of gratitude, as opposed to like keeping and accumulating and hoarding and competing and feeding other people in that process. So for me, that became clearer and clearer as I did this, and I feel very fortunate that I have the kind of ecosystem, perhaps some karmic reason, that my parents are incredible human beings. I'm so grateful for them, to give me all kinds of different conditions. It's hard to pinpoint, and my family and my wonderful wife, so.
As you rightly mentioned, trust deficit is increasing in the world. So how do you see next 5-10 years? How do you see the world moving?
I'm teaching a class at UC Berkeley this semester, starting next Tuesday. I will be at Berkeley. Although the class already started, I'm teaching it with another fellow. It's called Alternative Visions of Technology. So I think we have technology is scaling up at a very fast pace without us asking. Like, see, when we had doctors, at least we had the Hippocratic Oath. And the Hippocratic Oath said, even if it's symbolic, it says that I'm here to serve other people. Engineers are now ruling the world, right? Facebook engineers, these are all like our neighbors. We were all in Silicon Valley. These Facebook engineers are 23, 24, 25. They've barely found like the purpose of life, and all of a sudden this whole roller coaster hits, and the design decisions they are making at that age is affecting how trillions of people are connecting with each other. And what we've done is cheapen friendship from this whatever level it was, which I would say was low to begin with, and we could have gone much higher. We've now cheapened it even more. So how do we address this lack of deep connections? And for me, the answer is service. And the answer is you have to probe and raise these difficult questions. So we're going to take a bunch of PhD students at Berkeley and ask these questions. If Gandhi were building a computer, what would it look like? If Tagore was doing it, if Illich was doing it, if Paulo Freire was doing it, how would their design principles be different? So I think the next 5-10 years, we will have, I think we're on a pace where we're going from mobiles that are going to be outdated soon, because it's all about Google Glasses, and the Google Glasses becomes Google Contacts, and then Google Contacts becomes a chip in your brain. And I've talked to, tomorrow I'm speaking right after the MD of Google India, So I've heard all this like firsthand, you know. So it's there. It's a roller coaster. It's a massive momentum. But on the other side, we need nature. Nature will step up, and it will have its instruments. And I hope I can be an instrument to say, wait, there's this thing called deep friendships. There's this thing called hugs. There's this thing. It doesn't all have to be an e-hug. You know, it doesn't all have to be an emoticon. And let's create the karma kitchens of the world. Let's create the OA circles. Let's create the small acts of kindness. Let's pay toll for the car behind us. Let's pay for coffee for the person behind us. Let's pick up the trash for someone we don't know. Let's go out and give free hugs. You know. So I think all that needs to arise, and you know, I don't know what the chances are, but I'm putting myself on the line for it. So I hope you do too, and I hope all of us do. You know.
Do you have a website where one can know?
I think we have a website. Yes, we do. Servicespace.org is servicespace. So that's a Meta website, and then we have many other websites that or it's on here. Oh, maybe. There it is. Servicespace.org. I think if you go to it, I would encourage all of you. So one thing is that if you want to stay connected, I will send everyone, because if you give me all your cards, it becomes inefficient, but there's a little sign-up sheet. So if you want to stay connected, just write your email there, and I'll send everyone an email tonight. Those that want to stay connected, or if you have an idea or any ways that I can be of service, or you can be of service. And there's a lot of different portals where, you know, ServiceSpace there's about 500,000 members in it, so it's a fairly big thing compared to Facebook. It's fairly small, but it's, you know, we do what we can, and there's a lot of good people rising up and saying yes. Anyone can come to an awakening. We've had the CEOs of famous companies come. We've had a person who's committed murder, spent 30 years in jail. In Awakening Circle, no one's asking for your biodata, you know. You sit in circle and you say, look, I might have made a mistake. Even if you look at people who have made sad mistakes, or very dramatic mistakes, like let's say killing somebody. One of my friends who works with prisoners, right? He actually went around these people who are in for life, and he says, how long was your moment of rage? And 2 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 17 minutes. He added all that up. And he said, how many years are you in jail for? 27 years, 32 years. Right? So for, you know, 87 minutes of rage, you've spent collectively 192 years in prison. And so, you know, you can, like Gandhi used to say, you can hate the action, you can oppose the action, but not the person. Don't reduce that person into all that action. We've all made mistakes, you know. So the Awakening Circle is about, you know, connecting in a very different way, about honoring everyone's sharing. And there are 5 happening in Bombay every week. So if you know, again, you can go to awaken.org, or you can also leave your email. How do I expect to bring up my children with this lifestyle? I have an easy answer to that, is that even before marriage, my wife and I decided we weren't going to have kids. But I know many people who have raised their kids this way, many Gandhians. And, you know, people used to ask me, well, this is all nice and good, but wait till you get married, you know. And wait till you do this. And I don't think conditions, I think if your heart is in the right place, and you have enough equanimity to weather the storms, then I think no matter what the conditions, this is in alignment with nature. So I don't think it's an exceptional thing. I think what is exceptional is our belief in our bank accounts. What is exceptional is our belief in security. It's like, wow, you believe in that? Like that man-made design of 120 years, which breeds scarcity and fear into everybody? That has a design flaw, which we will overcome probably in the next 120 years. But like that's what we believe in, you know. So the monks look at people like us in the world and say, "Oh man, you keep rolling around, have endless dramas and all that," you know. So I think for me the challenge is to stay rooted in what the monastics and the sages all over the world have told us. So I am thankful. There are a bunch of hands. Sorry I couldn't go to everybody, but oh, yes, I'm available for hugs, but I don't think we're done, so give it a second. I think these guys will probably want to conclude, so it was in the back. And And yeah, I'm around. I look forward to hugging you and spreading love.
We are at a very strange milestone. So first of all, it was my suggestion that we should have Nipun Mehta. I've never even met him. What really appealed to me was when I looked at as to what is his purpose, in life, and he said spreading smiles and finding stillness within. And it just touched me so much. So that is why he's here with us. We are standing at a very milestone in case of our association with Amita. She lived with us for 27 years, and after that she left. She stopped living amongst us, and she's lived in our hearts and memories for another 27 years. So we are at that point. In the 27 years that she was with us, she engaged with us with her charm, with her wit, with her love for income tax and her fondness for puzzles. She was a very captivating person. The red roses that you see represent those 27 years spent in spreading smiles. In words of Premchandra Bhatt, Fuldani Forum Kemre Jelai, Eto Gairani Pankhe Udi Jaire, and Amita left the circle. 31st January 1987. The next 27 years for us as a family, they were years, it was a unique journey. Started with years of denial, years of non-acceptance. It slowly transformed into years of recognition, reluctant acknowledgement of what had happened, and finally quiet acceptance, till a point that we came to a realization which brings in stillness within. The white flowers next to her picture represent the stillness within, which has come in the 27 years since. My message to Amita: you have no birthdays because you have always lived. You are never born and never will die. You are not the child of the people you call mother and father, but a fellow adventurer on a bright journey to understand the things that are. Fly free and happy beyond birthdays and across forever, and we'll meet now and then when we wish, in the midst of the one celebration that never can end. Thank you, Nipun Bhai, for being a part of one such very important celebration for us, for winning us over with your stories of smiles. I would call you that you are Smiles Unlimited. On behalf of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society, Chamber of Tax Consultants, Trustees of Amita Memorial Trust, and all of you who have been part of our journey of the 27 years after Amita left us and helped us to find our stillness, I propose a very happy vote of thanks.